Hey y'all, it's Kate from the Apothecary and welcome back to my channel. I am here to talk about Witchcraft for the Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. This is a horror, fantasy, historical fiction, thriller. It's got like all of the genres in one. It is absolutely amazing. My general thoughts about this book was that, so this was my first Grady Hendrix book, and while I am aware that most of his other books aren't like this book, this made me want to read more Grady Hendrix books. I actually picked up How to Sell a Haunted House on our bookstore road trip, so I can't wait to dive into that, hopefully very soon, because I need more Grady Hendrix in my life. This book was so damn good. It had me laughing and crying. I started this book because of a patron suggestion by Leslie at the Nerdy Narrative, but I continued reading this book because I was hooked and I was loving it and I had to find out what happened. Definitely one of my top 5 reads so far this year, and I know that list is getting long, which is why I do my favorite books of the year in the format that I do, because every time I try to create a top books list, it gets way too long. It goes way beyond the number that I give it. So I'm saying this is one of my top 5 reads so far as of the reading of this book, which was I think like back in March now. That's how far back I am on these dedicated reviews, but I'm slowly catching up. So we'll see how far I can catch up this year, because I feel like I'm so far behind. Let's dive into the different categories and talk about these. So our characters, the way that Grady Hendrix wrote these pregnant teenage girls was amazing. You would never have thought that a white man wrote these girls. They were so realistic and sympathetic and honestly just heartbreaking. Our atmosphere and our setting, from the Wellwood home to the woods to the hospital, it was all always present and vivid and perfect. Writing style, you know what? I just loved his writing style in this book. It was so engaging and engrossing and entertaining, and I loved everything about it. Our plot, now, there were so many unexpected twists and turns in this book everywhere you went. There was some kind of a twist or a turn that, at least for me, was completely unexpected. And I just loved that kind of experience. And that ending was absolutely nuts. If you've read this book, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I got to the end and I was like, what in the world just happened? I did not expect anything about that ending, like the last several chapters at all, and I loved it. Intrigue, I was always intrigued. I always didn't know what to expect, but knew I had to keep reading to see what was going to happen because I didn't know what to expect. Logic, for the place and time that this book takes place in, mostly the deep southern U.S., like Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, that kind of deep south. In the 1970s, it made such heartbreaking sense. For the place and the time that this book took place, it made so much sense that it was heartbreaking, because things like this actually happened back then in those places. And this is one of those books that you really need to remove your modern lens when rereading this book and just immerse yourself in these girls' points of views in the southern U.S. in the 1970s. Otherwise, it's not going to be as great of a reading experience. You might still have a great reading experience, but you'll have an even better one if you can remove that modern lens that you have and just immerse yourself in the time and the place of this book. Of course, enjoyment. I absolutely loved it. I can't wait to read more Grady Hendrix, even if it's different than this one. I want to read all the Grady Hendrix that I can. So if you guys have more Grady Hendrix books besides this one and How to Sell a Haunted House, or you want to send me other ones, feel free to send them to me. I will accept them. I will read them. I will probably love them. I will probably be scared out of my mind while reading them, but I am becoming a huge horror thriller fan, especially in these kinds of books. Last but not least, definitely not least, is the audiobook narration. I listened to this strictly on audiobook, and y'all, they did a fantastic job. We had 3 audiobook narrators, Leslie Howard, Hillary Huber, and Sarah Morrissey. And what I'm imagining is happening with these 3 different narrators, just based on the different voices that I've heard, is we have one narrator, and I don't know which one is which, because these voices, these names aren't very familiar to me with voices. I can't place them. So if you know who's which, that's great information to have, and please let us know in the comments below. But we have one narrator that is kind of like our main narrator. She tells the story that is happening here in this book. We have one narrator that kind of does like the witchy parts, because there you know, witchcraft for the Wayward Girls. You got some magic, you got some witches. And so I think there's a second narrator for those witchy parts. And then there's what I think is a third narrator for the very end, and I can't say more about that and why there's a third narrator without giving away spoilers. So y'all need to read this book, and then you'll know why there's a third narrator at the end. But I absolutely loved Witchcraft for the Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. I can't wait to read my next Grady Hendrix book. If you have read this book before, let me know in the comments below. What did you think of it? What was your favorite category, your favorite part about this book? I think mine was just the way that he was able to write these girls in such a realistic and sympathetic way. If you've read more Grady Hendrix books, let me know in the comments below which one is your favorite. Is it Witchcraft for the Wayward Girls, or is it another Grady Hendrix book that I personally haven't read yet? They will all go on my future TBR list to be read at some point in the hopefully near future. As always, keep reading, and I love you all to the moon and back.